Okay, guys, so this episode is especially for you if you are having a difficult time seeing the positive in the world or in your day, or if you're just feeling like you're in a rut where everything seems so negative. You're seeing political war, illness, and you're seeing the effects of alienation. Maybe your kid or kiddos are being especially inconsiderate right now. Whatever it is, you just seem to be noticing all of the darker parts of this 50-50 world we live in. And so today I'm going to share with you how I shifted my perspective, and also, contrary to popular belief, how healing your heart and healing your life does not impede your ability to confront or contend with the alienator or the narcissist in your life. How it, in fact, healing actually, it prepares you to confront anybody. So stay tuned. Welcome to Beyond the High Road, a podcast devoted to healing your broken heart following the grief of alienation. I'm your host, Shelby Milford, twice certified life coach, specializing in post-traumatic growth. I'm also a target parent and a former codependent who had a tendency to develop addictions to pretty much anything that made me feel better in the moment. If any of this sounds familiar, then this show is my love letter to you. Stay tuned. So I just was listening to a podcast that made me think about you, because the subject was operating at higher frequencies. I forget the title of the podcast, but the idea is, we always hear, and I'm sure maybe you have said it yourself, like this world is, okay, let me just talk about me. I know that there was a point in time when I wasn't as, shall we say, I wasn't as cheery as I now am. There was a time when I would have been at me, because I thought that the world was an awful, toxic place to live in. I didn't understand how such horrendous things could happen, namely alienation, how my own sweet daughter, small child, could be separated, taken from me, robbed is how I thought of it. And sometimes still do, but robbed from her own mother with the law's help, which made it even worse. That much more shameful, that much more, is it me? Like, what's happening here? I was never like a conspiracy theorist, but there was a long period of time, actually, maybe 3 years, where I saw the world as dark and gloom. And I would look at a pregnant woman and give her this dirty look, like, how dare you bring somebody into this world, this awful world? Serious. I thought the entire world operated in the way that I saw it. And it did, because that's how I saw it. And so it took a lot of intentional thought work in order to change that. And in fact, when I was doing it, I wasn't doing it with the idea in mind that I was going to change my view of the world. It wasn't to get to where I'm at today. It never was. It was just so that I could make it through the day that I was currently in back then. It's like, I just want to feel better right now. I just want to not feel trapped, persecuted. I knew all the things that I didn't want, but I didn't know what I did want. That's for sure. And I didn't set out to find love and puppy dog tails and rainbows about the world. That wasn't it. I just wanted to get through. I just wanted to survive. And that's where it all started for me. Anyway, I get it. And I know the feeling of looking at the world like it's an awful place to live. There's such darkness. There's such evil. There's such bad, yada, yada, yada. I understand it. And if that's where you're at, I want you to know too that I understand how exhausting it is, how heavy it is. I get it. I know. I have an intimate knowledge of what it feels like to see the world coming from that place. I also want to offer you hope. Okay, so now I was driving earlier for the first part of that, and I'm actually at home now with my mic and my laptop in front of me, so the sound quality should be better. So if you are in that spot, like I was describing, where you can't imagine the world getting brighter, you can't see a way around the darkness that you're currently feeling. You don't see how you would ever get unstuck or have a life beyond the child or children that you are missing. Then I'm hoping that this will sort of help you at least understand the kind of mindset that I adopted and what helps me. I think it's realistic. At the same time, offers you some actionable steps and like a sense of motivation. Okay, so just bear with me while I go through the negative part. We established in the last episode that we've been around for, hundreds of thousands of years. And in that time, humans have suffered. There have been murders and earthquakes, hurricanes, and there has been cancer, rapists, and very ugly people and ugly things out there. These things are part of the human experience. These are the real challenges that we as humans are presented with. And I can already hear you through my headphones on the other side saying, yeah, but how come some people have such bright and cheery lives and they look like they never have anything go wrong with them? I'm getting there. So just hold tightly. So there is suffering. Suffering has always been part of the human existence. In fact, not even just human existence, like existence. Look at the animal kingdom. It's not exactly an easy world out there. So there is suffering. Knowing that that is part of it, let's bring it to like alienation, to what we are suffering. I think that it's always helpful to keep in mind that, for me anyway, what helps is knowing that overcoming adversity, overcoming these struggles is growing you. And I know that used to piss me right off. People used to always say, God, you're so strong. And I'd be like, I don't want to get any fucking stronger. Like, I don't want to get stronger. I'm over being strong. Like, I've been doing that for too long. But that attitude was the wrong attitude for me. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but it was the wrong attitude for me because I was looking at it as if I was a victim to being stronger, which is the antithesis of strength. Does that make sense? So because I was looking at it as something that I had to do as opposed to what I chose to do, then I was at the effect of it. Okay, so if we are looking at the world in this way, that it is dark, the entire world, there are bad people everywhere. There are bad things that happen. There is disease, crime, there is political war, all of the things. We can't heal the world all at once. There is no way to heal that as a whole. And I come from a very positive mindset, but we can't like just wave a wand and cure everything at once. But there are two things that we can change, and that will affect your entire view and also have a ripple effect on the world. What we can do, and what I think our purpose is here in this world, is to heal ourselves. That is the purpose. And because if I heal myself and you heal yourself and the next person heals their self, if we each focus on our own healing and spreading that love, that healing to the community around us, it's a collective effort. Like, I think the lockdown was good for a lot of reasons. I mean, there were some awful things that happened as a result of COVID-19. I do not mean to make light of that. And out of adversity comes growth. And one of the best things that came out of the lockdown and COVID-19 in my eyes was that there was a lot of innovation, where there were a few things, but a lot of innovation happened and a lot of healing happened. People spent a lot of time with their minds, with their own selves. And as a result, I think it set the ball rolling for a lot of outward healing. Our mental health is on the forefront of people's minds. We are talking about things in the media these days that few years ago, people wouldn't dare to address or bring up. So I do believe that we've already got some momentum behind us to begin healing the suffering that we have. I'm not trying to heal the world? Well, yes, I am in a way, right? If we all continue to do this, then I think we do have a chance. We are like, if you will dare to look at yourself and your life and your adversities and your suffering and your challenges as a way to move through them and grow from them, then you will essentially be part of the world that you're saying that you want to live in. Does that make sense? I'll talk about me. Like I was saying, I knew everything that I didn't want, but I wasn't being a part and contributing to the things that I did want because I didn't have the energy to do so. I wasn't there. I wasn't there mentally. I wasn't there emotionally. I couldn't be there physically because I didn't understand what that meant. I was operating at a lower frequency. And as I sit here, I'm striving to be at a higher frequency than I am currently at this moment. Like we should always be evolving. That is what we as humans are meant to do. So if I am looking at the world and saying, I hate what I'm seeing, then I'm only contributing to that problem. And the only way that we can like what we see is to change, to evolve and grow in our own lives and with our own struggles so that we can get to that higher frequency, to get to just a better version of ourselves. But if we are just only paying attention to what we don't want, we're not moving forward. So it's like when you're looking at the alienation, for instance, and you're saying, yeah, but nobody else has to deal with this. Or so like all my friends, they have normal relationships with their kids and they have normal relationships with their ex. And especially around this time of year, if you're listening to this in November of 2022, there's all those like Hallmark holiday movies where it's this idealistic version of like the split families. I think it's important to remember a couple things about this. Well, number one, these are Hallmark movies. They're not reality, right? But if you're looking at like your neighbors or the quote unquote typical traditional sense of a family, then you're going to disappoint yourself there because of a couple things. First off, things are never as they appear. People may look so on the outside, but you never know what's going on inside of their homes. We just don't know. We don't understand what someone else truly is going through. And I think that's so important is to, develop a desire to understand others. This would help with our view. But also what I like to remind myself and my clients is this is the way I like to think about it anyway. Like at birth, each one of us is given a backpack. Think like Dora's backpack. And in that backpack, we each have our unique set of tools. But we don't really know what those tools are until we get to the challenges where we need them, right? And then we have to figure out which tool works. But so each time we come to a challenge, we are equipped. We are perfectly equipped for that challenge. We just may have to learn how to get through it, right? May have to go digging in the backpack to find the right combination of tools that brings like the drawbridge to the waterfall down. With our challenges throughout life, this obstacle course, and the tools we were equipped with, these components make up the perfect ingredients to make us the best version of each one of ourselves. Does that make sense? Without all of those specific tools and without all of those challenges, each one of us couldn't get to where we're supposed to go. We all have different paths. And these were already put in place before, like predetermined. That's how I like to think about it. It does help me to move through things and I get a lot accomplished this way. For me, the alienation was already determined. And that used to hurt my ego, but we'll talk about that later. That was already determined. It was already going to happen. So when I look at it in that way, then I can say, okay, well, the goal of this challenge is for me to grow, from it. Stay with me here because it is good news, and I'll explain it here in just a sec. If I continue to avoid looking at it and resist it, then I'm never going to learn from it. And if I never learn from it, then I will always continue to fear it and to be in suffering about it. Okay? So if I decide to lean into it, I'm not saying to agree with it. What I'm saying is acknowledge that it's already there, that it happened, so that I can gain understanding about it. Because when we resist something, we also resist knowing what it is. And then it stays a mystery and stays something that we cannot overcome. Okay. And I think it's very important to mention here that this does not only apply if you have decided to not go back to court for your child or children, right? This especially applies if you want to continue to fight your custody situation. This is especially important for you. And here's why. If you don't get right, and if you don't process, and if you don't get some distance from the situation, like perspective wise, then it will eat you alive during the proceedings, right? During the legal proceedings. You getting up on the stand, you will go through stress response after stress response. You won't be able to think clearly. So when you apply the steps, all of the steps that I talk about in this whole podcast, then you're able to think more clearly, think on the spot, and to recall the proper facts, the proper sequence of events, all of the things. Because when you're in the stress response, as you know, what will happen is everything gets all jumbled up in your head. And you can't think correctly because your cortisol is being released in your body, and you're in an emergency state. So you're never able to perform at your highest, right? In fact, you're in shutdown mode. So these steps, sometimes I've had clients come to me that resist doing this because they think that if they give in to healing themselves, they will become weakened, like their momentum will stop, right? And they'll acquiesce into the role of being an alienated parent. I promise you what I'm saying is when you take these steps, this will propel you because you'll be able to see things with zero shame, with a renewed sense of self and sense of purpose, and you will have your side of the street completely cleaned up, and your self-worth will be so high, self-worth, not your ego, but your self-worth will be so high that you know what you are deserving of, okay? So I think that I can't say that more emphatically and enough times. I wish I could spread that to the world, to every alienated parent out there, because this is something that is so commonly misconstrued that if you heal yourself or if you process this anger and this hurt, that somehow you're going to lose your power to fight. And it's the exact opposite. What you don't know is what you're going to fear. And what you fear, you run from, retreat from. Think about when you're in the mess of all of the alienation and you are fear-stricken. You're not taking any action from that place. I can promise you that. Not from fear anyway. From anger, guilt, shame, all of those things, you're not going to get much accomplished. So you got to process through those and normalize whatever thoughts are creating that so that you can get to the good stuff, so that you can motivate yourself, propel yourself forward. Okay. And the last point I'll make is that the brain we're going back to how we see the world, right? And if you are seeing all dark and gloom, then it'll be good to remind yourself, first off, become aware of the thoughts that you're thinking all the time, because you probably have a habit of thinking these thoughts. These thoughts are you're so used to thinking them that you don't even notice that they're happening, right? When you make the decision to say, okay, I want to start becoming more aware of my thoughts, you will start to become more aware. My suggestion is that you daily take 5 minutes and write things down the old-fashioned way. I think I talked about this in one of the beginning episodes. There is something that is very cathartic, right? But Also, when you get the separation between you and your thoughts, then your brain recognizes that you are separate from them, that your thoughts are not you. And you need that distance to be able to become aware of what's going on. We protect our homes, we protect our cars, we protect our purses, our belongings, our wallets. If you're a guy, we don't protect our own brains. We don't look and take inventory of the shit that's flying around in our head. And we have thoughts that we've adopted since we've been little ones. We adopted from our parents and from those around us in our dysfunctional families and from high school, all of all the experiences. We've collected all these thoughts, and 80% of the world is walking around with those thoughts bouncing around in their head and have never intentionally cleaned house. Said, oh gosh, what am I choosing to believe? Like intentionally, consciously looking at the stuff that you're thinking and you're believing. My God, I mean, like our brains are the most powerful tools. Unbelievable. What we think, we create, right? Our thoughts create our results always. So if we're not conscious of what is going into our brains, then how the fuck are we going to look at the world in a bright and cheery way? Because our brains, this is what I was going to say. My dog just ran out of the room because I am so passionate about this. I think he just thought I was angry. Anyway, so you can see I get all kinds of fired up with this. But if you've ever heard about something called confirmation bias, our brains, as I've mentioned, I think before, and you may already know that our brains like to do three things, the motivational triad. We want to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and be efficient. This last one is key in what I'm talking about here. Our brains want to do what they know. It likes efficiency. It likes habits. And so even if whatever the thing that you're thinking or doing is causing you harm, because you're not dead, your brain is like, we're cool. We're going to go with this. We know it, right? That's how the brain works. It's just going to keep doing the same thing over and over as long as it's keeping you alive. Okay. Having said that, putting that just to the side for a second, confirmation bias is when we want to look at the world. If I've got a bunch of negative experiences in my life and my brain has prioritized those things because that's what was keeping us alive at the time, then those negative thoughts are going to win. Those are going to be the most powerful thoughts. My brain is going to try to feed those thoughts more. And the way it does that is by gathering evidence to support those thoughts. Confirmation bias. Your brain is going to go look for things out there that support what it already wants to believe. So if I want to believe that my dog is purple, then my brain will find every damn way to make sure that I find the evidence to support that. Does that make sense? And the same for you. If you want to believe that the world is a dark and ugly and evil place, your brain will find every bit of evidence to support that. And your brain loves that one because that goes to the catastrophizing that your brain has already done for you if you're looking at the world as a dark and evil place because of the trauma that you've been through. So your brain says, oh, trauma, we know trauma. We know what to do with trauma, right? And so we're going to find all of the danger signs around us. And so your brain will only look for that and it will skip over all the stuff it thinks that's not important to it. But those things that it's skipping over is all of your light, right? So when you make the conscious decision to start looking for the light, to start looking for the, puppy dog tails and daisies and rainbows, you will begin to find that. You ever notice, like if you have a bad day, you'll only see like bad. You'll find all the bad things in the world. And if you have a good day, the opposite is true, right? You'll see things from a completely different perspective, as if a different person was in your brain, right? So if we want to change the world, if you want to change how you're seeing the world, then it starts with intentional thinking for yourself. And when you heal yourself, then I promise you will see the world differently and you will change your immediate world, the people in your world around you, just by your shift. You don't have to tell anybody. We can, but you won't have to tell anybody. You won't have to control anybody. the shift is enough. That energy, you operating at a higher frequency because you're of the shift that you've intentionally made, it will shift the next person and the next person and the next person. Okay. So looking at it from this perspective, I think it has a domino effect on the world. So it's not just mental gymnastics, it's actually changing things around you. Okay. So that's all I have for today. This was supposed to be a mini episode. Who knows how long it is now? It's probably close to 30 minutes. Okay. Y'all take care. Thanks so much for listening today, guys. I am so elated that you've chosen to share your time with me. If you liked what you heard today and you would like to hear more, please click subscribe so that you can be notified of new episodes. And thanks again, y'all. You are already in my heart. Till next time.